Hey guys, it's Abby. I'm back with another video, and today I will be doing something a little bit different. This is a video that's going to involve a lot more talking and reflecting as opposed to like bookish things. But it is bookish still. So I really want to talk about diversity in young adult novels and fiction and etc. And I know that it's kind of become this trendy, popular thing that's in now, is like these LGBT reads and diverse reads, and that's an awesome thing. But I really just want to reflect on how much better it could be and how it can improve. And I was having a conversation with my sister in the car about this because I was having genuine thoughts and concerns about it, and I was thinking I've been reading a lot of LGBT reads lately, and they've been so wonderful, which is great because that makes me feel inclusive and something that I understand. And I've only been out and aware of my sexuality for the last year of my life. So having these books being accessed to me just within the last year or two has been really helpful for my process of figuring out who I am. And so I was thinking about the characters in general that you read about in books, and oftentimes they are white women. Or like when I'm thinking about women characters that I can relate to, they're usually white women. And so that kind of sent me back to my childhood because my situation is a little different, and I'll just give you a history on my experiences with race. So I grew up in a very, very diverse, well-rounded area. I am right outside of a big city, so it's a suburbs, but it's very diverse, and I did not have very many race issues growing up, if any at all. I never had issues with dealing with my hair or the color of my skin, because there were so many other people who were so many other different colors and race and different hair. And I mean, maybe there were like little bits of it where someone would be like, oh, you don't talk like a black person, you talk like a white person. Or I remember some kid on the bus used to call me Pocahontas, and like little things like that that have impacted me, but had never dealt with the direct racism before. And so I was just living in this beautiful, privileged bubble. And then I moved out into the Midwest for college. So my family still lives in the same town that I grew up in, and it's just been wild trying to compare here to the Midwest. And you know, I love Kansas City, I love living in the Midwest, and I love the people that I have out there. But it can be difficult having conversations about race out there because Kansas City is, I think, don't quote me on this because I'm pulling this out from somewhere that someone told me, but is in one of the top 5 most segregated segregated cities in the country. At least it has been at one point, and that has a lot to do with Kansas City history, which is like a whole other thing that I could get into, but I'm not going to get into it with a lot of gentrification and all that jazz. But basically, it can be diverse in itself. My university itself is diverse. But you can see the direct line of white and black, and where the white people hang out and where the black people hang out, and that kind of thing. And I'm being very candid right now because honestly I'm mixed. I see it from both perspectives, or whatever you want to say, because oftentimes people feel more comfortable with me because I'm not really black. And I'm not going to start getting angry, but just where was I going with this? So I move out to the Midwest, and I start hearing people talk about race in a completely different outlook than I did out here. Because really, race was something I never talked about growing up with people because it didn't matter. At least maybe I was just lucky, because I know my sister struggled with it a little bit more, but I had really great friends who we didn't really deal with that kind of stuff. We didn't care. And so I go out there and I start to notice these issues, and I even had a couple little spurts of just like direct racism affecting me, or accidental racism or something like that, or people getting offended about white privilege. And just in the last couple of years we've had a lot of race issues which have had to be brought up in classes and brought up in friend groups about the shootings and the police brutality and all of these horrible things, which are still extremely relevant right now with the last couple of shootings we've had. And it's been really difficult and really sad, and it's almost something I don't want to talk about because it's such a huge impact on me, and it's just so sad. And it made me think back to when I was a kid and when I was reading books. Every character was white. I mean, I really sat down, and these bookshelves are the books that I read growing up. This is every book that I've ever owned personally that hasn't been lost or like is somewhere else in my house. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, these are all white characters. All white characters. And then I think back to when I started writing, because I've been writing since I was little, and I wrote white characters. Like, why didn't I write a character that looked like me? That's because I didn't think that's what people wanted to read. I assumed characters had to be white with brown hair or blonde hair and your average looking everyday American girl, and that is what I wrote for almost my entire life. Up until I think college, all of the characters that I wrote in my books that I used to write from literally like first grade to graduating high school were all white characters. Like, why did I do that? Why would I do that? I didn't make my characters look like me. And maybe, I don't know what it was doing to me subconsciously. I'm like trying to figure it out. I'm having this like little crisis, like, dang. But that's because that's all I knew. I thought, okay, I look really different, but that doesn't mean anybody wants to read about somebody who looks different, you know? And I just assumed all the characters would be the same shape, you know, like a certain sized girl, you know? And I just didn't even think about it, thinking about how, like, characters should look a little bit different. And it's okay for characters to look different because humans look different, and it's just this like existential crisis I'm having. But then I also thought about why now, and we are getting a little bit more diverse within sexuality, I think, above all else. We're having a lot of LGBT characters, or at least that's what I've been noticing more in what I've been doing. But, you know, not as many black characters, or not as many mixed characters, or Hispanic characters. And so I did want to talk a little bit about some of my favorite books that do have these things in them. And I mean, there's not very many, which is kind of sad, but there are some. And obviously a big one is Harry Potter, because, you know, there's been this whole controversy lately about, like, was Hermione black, and how they're making her black in that new movie that's coming out, and all of that kind of stuff, which is awesome. I mean, just having that type of discourse is so important, and how J.K. Rowling, like, acknowledged that no, Hermione was not technically white. She never specified that. That's just how the readers imagine it, because that's our default setting. We're defaulted to think that there's a certain color. And people think that now that, like, being trendy and different is in, like, the way that my mom phrased it, she said ethnic is in. And it is. It's just something that's in right now, which, I mean, is in turn good, but that means that's a trend, and trends end. So it's not going to be trendy forever. So I think that's something that, like, everybody needs to kind of acknowledge, that it's still really important, even though it's not as big of a deal right now. So Nicola Yoon's books, Everything, Everything, and The Sun is Also a Star, both have mixed main characters, which is so important. I don't think I've ever read a book as a mixed girl with other mixed characters, even though they're not the exact mix as me. There is something that makes me connected to them. Love That Split the World by Emily Henry. Native American characters, like, that was a huge deal for me too. That's something that I hadn't read. Perfect Chemistry, if you guys remember these books, these are very, like, cheesy type romance, steamy romances. Perfect Chemistry, Chain Reaction, something else like those. I can't remember who writes them, but I'll have, like, the covers up on the screen or something. Those were all Hispanic characters. Those were super, super good. I loved those. And another issue that I have is that a lot of books will be like, oh, well, the character's kind of ambiguous. You can view them however you want. But that's not really making any sort of impact, because our default thought is white, 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 white. So not having these diverse characters explained to us, or at least outrightly saying that they are, you know, a different color than just white, we're just going to assume that they're white. And I still do that. As a black woman, I do that. And as a Native American woman, I do that. And so it's hard in order to imagine this. And, like, you know, you get excited at one point where you're like, oh, curly hair, black hair, green eyes. I'm like, okay, that could be possible. And then it goes like fair skin. And then it's like, dang it. And, you know, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. This sucks. Just I don't know what this, like, rant or discussion is trying to be about, but it's, race has just been on my mind lately with all of that's been going on, and it's just really important to keep that in the loop and keep that becoming a thing, and to read the diverse reads. And I know we're on that uphill train, but it just needs to keep going. And if you're a writer, to write diverse characters, that's something that I try to always strive for in my writing, now that I am more aware of my issues with identity and figuring out what kind of characters I want to write. I want to include mixed characters. I want to write characters who look like me. And, you know, this is something that my sister said. She was like, when a white person writes a white character, nobody asks questions. It's just writing a character. But when a black person or an Asian person or just anybody of any other minority or race writes a character who looks like them, it's automatically questioned and brought up, and that shouldn't be a thing. That shouldn't be how it is. And so I think it's just important to have knowledge about that and to talk about that, and you know, not have these preconceived notions about what type of who a person is based on the color of their skin, where they're from or what nationality they are. And it's just a huge just look into white privilege, the fact that even when you pick up a book, automatically it's white unless it's outwardly stated, and I just think that's a huge issue that we should really work on as human beings. I guess that's all I have to say. I just kind of wanted to rant, and I did, so there you go, there you have it. It's just really personal and close to my heart with the last couple of shootings of black men with the police, and then there was the Orlando shooting, and both of those have just impacted me in such a huge amount because I am part of both of those communities, and it's just really sad to see what's happening here, not only with guns and all that stuff, because that's not what this is about. This is more about race, and I'm just upset about what's happening, and I think it's important that we acknowledge it, and acknowledge that Black Lives Matter, and that, you know, like God. I didn't expect this video to be so sad. I was kind of hoping it'd be more like, hurrah, uplifting, like diverse reads, but, you know, it just went into a tangent of me saying sad things, so I don't really know how I feel about it, but I'd love to just have an open discussion in the comments if that's okay. Just ask me any questions if you want to. I'm leaving that open too, because I know there is a lot of discussion about like it's not someone else's job to educate you, but if you want to ask me any questions, I'm leaving that open, and this is an opportunity to ask questions because it is a really hard topic, and I think it's something that we need to discuss about, and just being on social media is really difficult right now because there are a lot of people who are just saying all of the wrong things, and if you are a white American, white cis American, white man even, just acknowledge that like you have the privilege, and by sitting back and not using that privilege to raise your voice against the injustice that's happening, then you are also part of the problem, and it's important to acknowledge that and step up and say something, because everybody needs to say something or nothing's going to change. So on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.